What if the mountains remember your name, and one night they say it back in your voice from the dark tree-line while your own mouth stays shut? Welcome back to my channel, Whispering Abyss. Tonight I brought 5 Appalachian nightmares gathered from hikes, night shifts, and towns that do not appear on the map. From voices that lure you off the path to lights that pretend to be help, each story is a thread pulled from a quiet place that doesn't like being touched. Some people vanish, some come back different. All leave something behind that keeps ticking like a watch on our floorboards. Listen close, keep the volume low, and tell me which story unsettled you the most. Was it the whistle you can't unhear, or the church that will not stay put? Story 1. The whistler on Wolfspine Ridge. The first time the whistle matched my breath, I had not even finished exhaling. 3 notes, soft and hollow, came back from the tree-line in the exact pattern my lungs chose by accident. It felt like the mountain cupped a hand to my mouth and tried it on, the way a thief tries a key. I tell myself that is just the height talking. Thin air, thin nerves. I have a light fog threading my headlamp, mica glittering in the trail like frost-caught breathing, and a cold iron smell that means rock is close to skin. If you have ever hiked after midnight, you know the way the dark leans in when you pause. You also know when it listens back. The ridge was listening, and it knew my rhythm. At the trailhead, there was a tin whistle hanging from a nail, the kind you buy at a gas station for the kids on a long drive. Someone had scribbled a note on duct tape around it. Never answer after 3. I laughed when I saw it, because superstition is a kind of hospitality out here. The folks in these hills will offer you a story the way they offer you cornbread. I did not take the whistle. I did pocket the note, because sometimes a joke can be a map if you read it twice. My radio hissed, then clicked clean. Collins, status. Tess sounded awake, but far away, the way people do when they're eating crackers and looking at weather radar. I told her I was on Wolfspine proper, that the storm was crawling slow out of the west, and that I had another 2 miles before the spur. She reminded me of 2 things. First, no heroics. Second, my brother would punch her if I forgot to call it too. The joke should have felt warm. It just made the air feel colder. I am on probation with the County Trail Steward Program. Last month I froze on a call, and a man waited too long on a ledge because I did not trust my own feet. You can judge me in the comments if you want. Just understand what the dark does when it smells you doubt yourself. This call tonight is my way back to even. A day hiker named Avery went missing at dusk. There's a photo of him smiling with a disposable rain poncho in his hood and the kind of eyes that tell you he does not know what the mountain keeps. The first undeniable wrongness is not the whistle. It is the way the moth with one torn wing keeps finding my headlamp, tapping it like it wants the light to move. That and the cairn ahead. We do not build cairns here. The river stones are smooth and wet looking, and there are 3 of them in a stack that points downhill to a place where no water runs. It is too tidy to be random and too wrong to be helpful. I circle it, and every angle points back toward the same hollow, as if the stack is a finger and I am the nail. My phone pings. Service does not exist up here. I pull out anyway because hope is idiot bright. There is a text, time-stamped 3 minutes ago. When you hear me, don't. The number is the one on Avery's intake form. For a second, I think prank. Then the whistle answers again, a polite 3-note question from the Laurel to my right. It uses my breath as a template. It is learning the shape of me. If I were a better steward, I would turn around and wait for daylight. If I were a worse one, I would chase the sound into the trees like a dog. Instead, I log a marker with my GPS and keep to the trail. The dirt is frost-hard, the leaves slick as if something breathed through them. I find boot prints in a patch of half-frozen mud. The tread pattern is merle with a split chevron, which would be normal except it is my exact model, including the worn corner where I drag my right heel on long descents. The prints head ahead of me. I touch one, and it feels warmer than it should. Tess, I have fresh prints, I say. She answers with coordinates in a tone that means she's trying to keep my nerves between her palms. The radio, which has been intermittent, records her and then plays her back a half-second late. Over her voice, there is a thin thing like someone breathing across a bottle. I pretend it is a glitch. Then the moth taps my light again and drifts down onto the middle stone of the cairn like it is sitting on a mouth. The coordinates she gives lead toward a fire road I do not remember on this map. I check my paper topo, the one wrinkled like an old palm. The contour lines in the middle section are doubled, as if a shadow tried to draw the ridge a second time and got it wrong. That is not how maps look. I tell myself it is a printing error. The radio whispers my own breath back at me in 3 notes, which is not how radios work either. If you have ever heard your voice played back with a lag, you know how your muscles want to fix it. You can fix nothing up here. I come to the Laurel thicket that marks the spur. Something bright flashes inside. I expect eyes. It is metal. Someone tied the tin whistle from the trailhead to a branch with fresh twine. The metal is wet like somebody just put their mouth to it and then hung it like a trophy. I do not touch it. The wind picks up and falls away like a chest trying not to cough. 3 notes come from the rock itself, not the bushes. I swallow. I answer once with my own whistle, soft between teeth, to place myself in the ridge like you place a bead. Never answer after 3. Tonight, I am not trying to be brave. I am trying to be useful. I try a second answer because sometimes patterns are how you call a person back. The wind goes still like a lid. The 3rd time I whistle, the rock takes it. The laurel leaves stop clattering. The moth leaves my light and vanishes into a crease of stone that seems larger now. Something in the crease answers with a 4th note that I did not make. It is an invitation and a dare dressed as a mirror. I use a flare. I told myself I would save it for a signal if I had line of sight, but the fog is thickening and there is nothing to signal except the mountain itself. The flare coughs, and then it is daylight red, the kind of light that makes new shadows. Down the slope, the glitter wakes up. It looks like moving headlamps until I realize it is mica reflecting my own flare from dozens of angles. A person could hide anywhere in there, and I would swear I saw them. The light draws the whistle closer. When the flare burns down, the dark tastes like iron again. I tell Tess what I did. The radio answers in 2 voices. One is her, say my name slowly like she's stepping on rocks in a creek. The other is me, which is a hell of a trick when my mouth is shut. The second voice says my brother's name as if it were a password. It says it perfectly the way I say it when I want him to pick up. I turn off the radio and turn it on again, the way you slap a remote when a volume sticks. The next 3 notes that come out are my breathing, learned. Something up here has a copy. I decide it is a hunter with a reed call. It happens. People come up to the ridge out of season, take the wrong roads, sneak the hills like they know them better than they do. Boot prints, metal tang, moving light. The case is neat. I follow it for 10 minutes, then the neatness tears. The boot prints veer into a section of lichen where no tread should hold, and when they come back the pattern is mirrored, left to right, as if someone walked in their own ghost shoes. I hold my foot over a print, and the notch of my sole fits like a tooth, but reversed. Hunters do not walk backward through their own steps with their prints wrong. The cairn changes behind me. When I first saw it, there were 3 stones. Now there are 2. I did not hear them fall. I did not hear anything fall in this place once it counts you. The moth returns, tapping my light, then lands on a silver shred caught in its torn wing. I pinch it gently free. It is not metal. It is the corner of a thermal blanket, the kind you hand to people while they shiver and lie about how fine they are. I feel my chest tighten with a relief so sharp it hurts. Avery is near enough to leave a breadcrumb. The storm drags itself over the ridge like someone pulling a soaked rug. I have maybe 40 minutes before the air gets teeth. My phone has no service. The radio battery icon lies in a cheerful way and then drops to 20. I pick the wrong direction first, toward the fake fire road on the map. The trees crowd closer and the path narrows, and when I stop to get my bearings, the world does that bad trick where every direction is downhill. My compass circle spins, once almost politely. The contour lines doubled on the paper make sense now. Something about the echoes here folds the path on itself like a throat swallowing. When you're caught in a fold, you have 2 options. You can bull your way forward and come back to the same place 3 yards later. Or you can back out by counting the steps you took and reverse each one, which feels like learning to walk again with your knees backward. I see the fallen log ahead with the wolf totems carved in it. Most of them look the same. One is cut in reverse, left where the others are right, as if it is a mirror wolf. I remember an old man in Haint Creek who told me names do not belong to you here unless you walk them backward once. He laughed when he said it, but his eyes did not. I did not want to try the backward path while I still think Avery is below me in the vented rock. I whistle a fourth time. I know the rule. I am doing it to break a worse rule, the one where people die while you obey signs. The fourth answer is not a note, but a breath, perfectly mine, coming out of a seam in the ground. The fog swells. The ants begin to run along the edge of a stone like someone rolled a drumbeat under them. My radio clicks and then locks on. It records my inhale and refuses to let it go. I hear myself on loop, then Tess's voice under it like someone underneath ice. There is a gap. It is not a mine door the way movies make them. It is a crease in the earth where the cold comes with intent. I go on my belly and feel mica against my chest like bright sand. The moth wanders in ahead of me. Its torn wing vibrates with the faintest hiss. I pull my light to my chin and angle it down into a mouth of rock that does not want company. The air coming out speaks the three notes of me. The answer that returns from below is the same three notes, but older and patient. If you're listening, you already know what the twist is, but I did not until I saw the foil glint caught on a stone tooth farther in. The thermal blanket is shredded along one edge like a river aided. I see boot scuffs on mica that look like mine until I fix the angle and realize the stride is shorter. Someone is alive down there. The radio loops my breath, then clicks in Tess clear as a bell. If you can hear me, back out. The echo repeats her, but out of time, like a duet. The echo adds my brother's name at the end like an address. A hunter with a reed call cannot do that. I slide in 3 body lengths until the ridge narrows and a shallow shaft drops to a ledge I can stand on. The smell is battery cold. On the ledge is Avery. His eyes have that not here shine people get when they have been listening to the wrong thing too long. He is breathing in my pattern. That is the part one will lie about when people ask me later what was the worst of it. He breathes in my pattern because the thing that lives in the vents learns what it is given and uses it like a rope. Do not talk, I say, because I'm not sure whose words would come out. I take the tin whistle from my pocket. I did not admit I pocketed it when I saw it tied to the branch. I did not want you to think I was superstitious. I am practical. The tape on it sticks to my glove. Never answer after 3. It is not a prayer. It is a mechanic's note. The whistle is not protection. It is a tool to count with until you must stop. The ridge is pocked with old mine vents, some natural, some not. When the wind moves right, the shafts talk to each other. Tonight they're talking with a voice I accidentally lent them. It wants more. It will copy anything given a 4th time and keep it on the loop. That is how a person becomes a story you tell on a porch. He kept answering. He gave it enough to make a hymn-shaped echo. I pull my radio mic cord free and cut it against the sharpest thing I can find. It is a choice I cannot undo. Without the mic, I am a light and a body and a pair of hands only. The radio stops playing my breath. Silence has a sound. It is a weight that comes off the back of your neck. The moth lands on my knuckle and rests, its torn wings still. Avery blinks as if someone took cotton out of his ears. Then the ridge inhales and prepares to try again. I guide him up by counting backward, step by step. The reversed wolf totem is where I fix my eyes when the path tries to slide. Every 3rd step, I stop and listen for the other me. She's behind my teeth, forming a note that is not the one I am making. I keep my mouth closed and let my nose sting. The cairn drops to one stone behind us without touching it. The storm reaches the ridge top. Lightning turns the mica into eyes. When we reach the Laurel, the wind returns in a rush that rattles its leaves like paper. The thing in the rock, which is an echo plus hunger, blows a last 3-note goodbye up through the seam with the sound of my exhale laced in. It is not angry. It already has me filed. It will test the vents of my apartment after midnight just to see if the pattern ports over ductwork. Do not tell me that is paranoia. The first night home, my radiator sighed in 3 notes and then nothing. The second night, it waited until I fell asleep. We come out of the fold into a piece of trail that belongs to ordinary maps. My flare scar is still a blackened star on the ground. My GPS stops, spinning its compass, and points to the parking lot like a dog after a missed call. I give Avery water while his hands tremble so hard the bottle taps his teeth. He says one word. He says my brother's name with my own voice. He does not know he did it. I smile like it is a joke we both heard and hated. Back at the trailhead, the tin whistle nail is empty. I do not know who moved it or whether I ever saw it where I thought I did. The note is still in my pocket, sweaty and blurred. Tess meets us at the truck. She looks at my cut radio cord and then at my eyes and decides to ask later. The rain begins in a way that makes the gravel spit. We leave before the ridge decides to have a second idea. Days later, the prize comes due in a quiet way. My voice is ragged. I sometimes repeat a word out of rhythm for no reason. The doctor says swelling, rest time. I tell her my vents sing me to sleep. She laughs because people say odd things after fear. She is not wrong. Fear rewrites you. So do mountains. 2 weeks after Wolfspine, I wake at 2:03 to a voicemail I never heard ring. It is from Tess's number, time-stamped the night of the rescue. The message is 30 seconds of static shaped like breath. At second 28, it tries my brother's name and almost gets it right. I save it because deletion feels like opening a door. The moth with a mended wing visits my window and rests like a latch. I know how it sounds. The ridge had a shape and it used mine because I was foolish enough to answer 4 times. Some nights the radiator goes still, and so do I, and nothing happens except sleep. Other nights it practices my breath, soft as somebody at the foot of the bed telling you there is more path below your house than above it. I have not called my brother after 2 in the morning since. I do not want to hear who answers in the background when he picks up. Now we move to the second story soon, if you want it. Story 2. The Lantern Man of Haint Creek. The first time the lantern swung, I thought my headlights had learned a new trick. Out here, the trees lean over Haint Creek like they're trying to drink the moon, and light breaks on their branches into knives and ribbons. But this glow moved with intention, warm and steady as if it had a wrist. It paced my driver's window where there is no road, only black woods and a creek with frogs that croaked once then fell quiet, like someone cut the power. The flame bent in the glass the way a face bends when it pays attention, and that is when I knew reflection never looks back. Not like that. My name is Eli Grant, and I run packages at night for a company that counts minutes louder than it counts people. I was late again. The shortcut down Haint Creek would shave an hour if I didn't stall out or drown. I had told my supervisor I could make up the delay, told myself the battery light was only flirting, and told the memory of my father that I would finish what I started for once. If you have ever driven a road someone warned you about, you know the way pride keeps your foot on the gas. There are signs on Haint Creek, but not the kind you photograph for tourists. A wooden post with Haint Creek carved backward so the letters only read right in a mirror. A frog with cloudy eyes perched in my beams like a broken marble. A mason jar sitting neat on the bridge rail with its lid on tight. Glass fogged, as if someone had just breathed a story into it and sealed the ending. Fast. The frogs went silent when my tires thumped the first plank, and the lantern appeared in the trees like it had been waiting for me to notice it. I told myself it was hunters pulling a prank. Small towns like mine learn you by your last name, and the Grants have a reputation for almost. Almost on time, almost enough money, almost sober. A mean teenager with a lantern and a good set of legs could pace a car for a minute or two. But the light stayed level no matter how I braked or gunned it, smooth as a metronome. And the woods on that side are a wall of laurel nobody runs through without bleeding, which made the joke feel less like a joke. Then the battery warning blinked solid, and the engine did the cough that comes before a decision. The dash dimmed, the radio hissed, and the steering wheel went heavy like something leaned on it from below. I could stay in the car and wait for another driver to come by at dawn, which might be never, or I could step out and see how close a false light likes company. I opened the door because fear is easier to manage when you can breathe, and the air smelled like creek mud and warm metal, as if somebody kept a coin on their tongue too long. The lantern was not alone. 2 more hung deeper in the trees at different heights. None of them had fuel, not in any way my eyes understood. Their glass was clean and bone dry. Still, one swayed though the air was dead, and that made my skin feel thin because motion without cause is a language place learns when it wants to talk. At my boots, the mason jar rattled against a root with a small hiss inside, the kind of sound your chest makes when you are about to lie about being fine. I picked up the jar. It pulsed warm, fogging thicker with each breath I took, like a tiny mirror of my lungs. If I held it close to my ear, I could hear something that matched my inhale and exhale a half beat late. I could smash it and in whatever trick was inside, or I could keep it sealed and carry it deeper into the woods like a promise I didn't remember making. I set it on the bridge rail, and the fog inside made a slow circle as if it missed having a mouth. I told myself again that it was a prank. Tractors could drag old lanterns into trees. Kids could leave jars by the bridge to bait a story. Maybe they knew I had a delivery through here and wanted to record a Grant scaring easy. Then my phone camera opened on its own, and the screen showed me standing in the dark with a lantern burning behind my shoulder, even though when I turned there was nothing there, which is a rude way for coincidence to behave. I waved at the screen and watched my hand move a breath out of time, like a dubbed movie. The light in the glass leaned toward my hair as if smelling it. Behind me, the bridge groaned, one plank, then another, and something big splashed where a road used to be. Retreat fell off the map. The packages in my trunk had soaked up creek air and failure, which meant even if I got out, I was finished with the contract. That should have felt like freedom. Instead, it felt like being measured. They tell a story around here about a man who led miners with a lantern when storms shut the sky. He was good until people stopped paying respect. After that, he kept voices instead of accepting things. Jars by the water, they say, are not for lightning bugs but for breaths. Easy to laugh at that in daylight with a burger in your hand. Harder when a jar purrs your rhythm and a flame bends toward your ear like it loves you. The lanterns drifted closer without any moving parts moving. They did not sway so much as arrive. The nearest hung at the edge of my peripheral vision where brains put things they want to ignore. I stepped to the side and it tracked, just enough to keep pace, like a conversation partner who will not stand directly in front of you because they know you will leave. From the jar on the rail came a soft tap, like a fingernail from the inside, asking for a chance to speak. Pride will wreck a man quicker than whiskey. I reached for the jar, laughed at myself, and set it down again, because even I could hear how desperate that laugh sounded. I pulled my hood up against a rain that hadn't started, locked the car out of habit, and told myself I would walk to the bend, look for a house light, and come back with a plan. The lantern kept pace in the trees, steady as breath, patient as habit. If you have ever been followed by something that refuses to be in a hurry, you know it unstrings you one knot at a time. The first fort came where the road gave up and turned to ruts. Right was the long way and safe. Left was the farm track that could outrun the storm if the earth under it liked you. The lantern floated left and then stilled like a guide waiting to be thanked. I pretended I did not see it and stepped right. The frog sang twice, short and wrong, and the jar fogged hard enough on the rail to hide itself, which felt like a warning delivered through a window. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number that repeated my father's voice in words. Eli. Turn around. The text looked like a screenshot of a voicemail transcription shoved through a meat grinder. The timestamp said a minute from now. I told myself there were apps that could fake that. Then the backward signpost appeared at the edge of my beams again. Haint Creek carved in reverse on the far side of the road when I knew I had left it behind, which meant directions were not obeying anything I understood. I headed for what I thought was the right-hand way around and found myself back at the same collapsed plank, same frog, same jar, same light. I touched the board because touching makes things real. It was slick with creek breath. On the glass of the nearest lantern, a smear shaped like a fingerprint matched the scar on my thumb from a roofing nail 10 summers back. The flame bent through the smear and reached toward me, curious as a raccoon. I did not want curiosity that knew my scars. The map rerouted again and again to Haint Creek, a neat blue arrow always returning like a dog taught one trick too well. I could follow the arrow deeper or cut the phone off and walk by starless sky and gut. I chose the middle coward's way and kept the map on, but ignored it because humans love having the thing that hurts us near our face. The lantern gave a small nod, I felt rather than saw, and moved ahead at the exact speed that kept it just beyond decision. which is a skill few people have and too many ghosts do. I found more jars. Some sat on stumps like candles in a church that doesn't claim God. One was hung from a laurel by twine, and when I brushed it, the twine felt damp with breath, which should not be possible. Inside that jar, the fog was not fog, but letters like a child writing S shapes over and over, and every time I blinked, the S straightened into the start of my name. I whispered, "Don't," and the jar answered with a soft dent in the mist that looked like the same word thinking itself through. Choice is pressure. I could smash one jar and see whether the hiss inside belonged to me or to the road. I could pick it up and discover what being carried meant to a place that liked to keep things whole. I lifted a shoulder high and paused because I heard my father's cough come out of it first, and then my own throat clear after, a layered sound like tracks on tape. I brought the jar down hard on a cinder block, and it exploded in a wet light that went straight through me and left me cold. For a heartbeat, I felt free, like something slid out of my ribs, and ran ahead laughing. Then the lanterns flared brighter, and a warmth fell out of me that was not body heat, more like a small lamp I had kept on for years and forgotten. My headlights on the dead car blinked, as if they had been assigned new wattage. The frog sang the end of a song I did not know I knew. If you have ever paid a debt you never agreed to, you know the flavor of that air. The prank theory died then. Geology does not text. Teenagers do not make jars that pulse with your inhale. Hunters can pace a truck for a laugh, but they cannot make a flame lean when you think of memory. The lantern man, if he is a man at all, is the hunger that rides false light, and false light is the kind you chase because it looks like help. Every step I took toward the flame made it brighter and made me thinner, a trade too smooth for bargaining once you notice you were spinning yourself. I chose to walk backward. It sounds simple. It is not. Your knees hate it, and your pride screams because walking backward feels like admitting you were wrong and someone else is watching. But pride is not a compass, and the creek was greedy, and the backward sign had been honest in its own rude way. I fixed my eyes on the car roof gleam and took heel-to-toe steps into the dark behind my head, counting aloud so whatever counted me would know I was not a toy. When I refused the light, it dimmed. Not instantly, like a person frowning and pretending they didn't care. The jar's fog settled without vanishing, like mouths closing. The frog with the cloudy eyes hopped twice toward the water, then stopped as if it hated to miss the show. With every backward step, the warmth returned to the space under my breastbone where worry sleeps. I backed until my hand found cold metal, and my elbow hit the door frame, and my knees forgot to tremble, which felt like winning a small prize at a cruel fair. Dawn found me late, contract ruined, packages like soggy bricks in the trunk. I called the number on my supervisor's email and got the recorded voice. I did not explain the lantern or the jars, or how I was the kind of tired that feels like you were one step out of your skin. I said the truth that would be believed. Battery died. Bridge out. Apologies. My father would have said, I failed correctly for once, which is not a kindness and not entirely wrong, either. For a few weeks, nothing followed me home except the kind of caution that makes you check door locks twice. Then the small echoes started. Headlights that bent a fraction toward my face when I turned the key. Map pins that slid to the blue ribbon of Haint Creek, even when I typed another county. Frogs that held a note too long under my window after rain. Last night, a mason jar sat in my cup holder, lid neat. Inside, fog the way my breath looks on a mirror when I am about to say my name where no one should answer. I left it there while the engine idled, refusing to reach, refusing to smash, pretending that not choosing was neutral. Condensation drew a slow circle inside, like someone tracing my route on a map. On the glass, a smear formed the exact hook of my father's initial, then slid away when I blinked. I unscrewed the lid a fraction and listened. What came out was not sound, but temperature, a small draft that matched my inhale, and waited for another. I tightened the lid until the thread squealed, which felt less like victory than buying time. Now when I drive past creeks, headlights bend toward the water the way tall grass leans to a river. At certain bends, a pale glow keeps pace just beyond the shoulder like a jogger who never sweats. Sometimes the app reroutes me toward the shortcut with cheerful arrows, and sometimes it reads the road name backward in the status bar, as if a mirror got between us. I do not take the bait. I keep a blank jar in the passenger footwell and tell myself it is only in case I find fireflies, a summer excuse I can repeat softly in traffic, even when the night wants another story. Maybe you think the jar in my cup holder proves weakness, that I should have smashed it as soon as it appeared and salted the shards. Maybe you are right. But I remember the smash, the way a warmth walked out of me and didn't look back. Some debts you pay in breaths. So I drive with the lid tight and my hand steady, and when the trees lean their light toward me, I do not lean back. Some help is a mouth. Some roads prefer you thinned, still. If you know the difference, you keep moving. Story 3. Salt Lick Tunnel doesn't let go. Headlights flatten the hillside and pour into the tunnel, but the light never reaches an end. It stretches, thins, and then seems to fold back like breath returning to a mouth, as if the dark in there inhales when my engine idles. If you have ever stood at the mouth of an abandoned place, you know the way it listens. The night in these hills has texture, rust and whetstone, a chalky taste on the tongue like old pennies sucked too long. The drip has a metronome quality that does not feel random. I tell the camera I am fine. The camera believes me better than I do. I am Nora Jennings, and my channel is small on purpose. I tell myself that when a video flops. Last month, I titled one about a root cellar wrong, and the algorithm punished me like I stole lunch money. This trip is my apology to everyone who stayed. Salt Lick Tunnel is a rumor dressed like concrete. Prohibition era. Half cut through a salt dome until accidents and math decided to stop. They filled it with rubble and sanity, and still the entrance here remains, a mouth that refuses to chew with its teeth in. My girlfriend, Leah, texted me before I lost bars. Be careful. Don't make ghost your career. I told her I would be back before midnight with footage that proves I am hunting places, not haunting them. She sent a heart and a skull, which felt like a joke and a prayer. I park with my bumper, kissing the warning sign, and think about how many ways I'm still trying to be believed. The tunnel breathes cool. There is salt on the breeze. The ceiling is patched with plaques of mineral, bright as pressed snow. The first tap of my boot echoes in a way that makes my shoulders rise. I roll in the camera and nod. We only go 20 yards for a taste. I say, the way a person says they will only look at the water and not swim. My phone battery is at 18%, and I go. 5 steps and my phone jumps to 30. I stop. It climbs to 40. Every explorer I know dreams of batteries that refuse to die, but this does not feel like a gift. It feels like a pressure cuff. I lift the phone like a divining rod, and the number hums higher. Okay, I say to the lens, we have a mystery. The drip shifts tempo and matches the pace I set without meaning to. Graffiti starts early. The usual names and dates and proclamations of love that never made it past sophomore year. Then a sentence in block capitals, "Wood enough to shine." It is not let go. I crouch to frame it. The paint smells fresh and wrong, like pennies again. There is a rust-red handprint to the left, small and square-palmed, and for a breath, I think kid. Then I see the finger spread is exactly mine. The beam from my headlamp sticks to the air, literal motes of salt dust visible. Above, circles of mineral bloom the way frost flowers bloom on glass. Each circle is neat, concentric, as if something pressed its face to the ceiling to listen. I swallow, and the tunnel swallows a half second later. I tell myself geology does odd tricks when nobody is watching. 10 yards in, the camera hiccups. It spits my own entry back at me, footage I haven't played yet, showing me walking into the frame I'm already in. I hold up my free hand to prove it is live. The version of me on screen does the same, a hair late. Cache glitch. I say, casual like I am not lying to myself. I consider deleting and starting fresh. I keep recording because this is the kind of odd that either ruins a channel or saves it. The mouth behind me should be visible, a coin of night darker than this night. When I turn, it looks farther than it should. I walk forward to test perspective. The beam touches the wall, then catches dust, then falls away into more tunnel. I take 5 slow steps back, counting. A clear path to air should widen. Instead, it stays a pencil. I adjust the tripod and blink. The tripod is not where I set it. The backpack I left beside it is missing like a hand pulled it into the dark and set it just out of sight. I do not panic. I practice breathing, which is funny in a place that breathes back. The drip keeps time with me. 1, 2, 1, 2. I whistle once, soft and reflexive, the way you call a dog in a dream. The echo returns, not a whistle, but a hum pitched to my throat. Okay, I say to the lens, and my voice comes back from ahead, using the same word as if it had it ready. Farther in, something throws warm light on the wall. The old construction lanterns are iron and glass and should be dead forever. One is lit. Its flame is too steady for wind, too steady for sense. Inside the glass a moth beats, wings scorched indecisive. Only it does not char and fall. It fades, then fills again like something trying on moth. I stop close, then stop closer, and the heat prickles my skin without a source. No fuel, I say, because saying what cannot be true makes it feel like we're keeping a ledger. My phone buzzes. No bars. A message from me in my own thread. Stop walking. No punctuation. No past. Just command. I look behind. The mouth is salt white and small enough now to mistake for a reflection of my headlamp in a wet patch. The battery indicator climbs to 69, to 74, then slows like a living thing sated. The camera cage hums. The words on the wall repeat 30 feet ahead, crisp and wet as the first. It does not let go. I do not remember stepping that distance. I am alone, but not unaccompanied. If you have ever felt your own shadow make a choice before you, you understand what happens next. The beam catches a figure ahead, and I tense like a deer. The figure is my silhouette, taller by an inch the way a shadow cheats, and it moves first. Her shoulders hitch the way mine do when I hallucinationally smell coffee. She cocks her head left, which is the way I check for wind. She raises her hand, and I feel the tendons in mine respond a beat late. Leah, I whisper without meaning to, and the shadow answers like I called it by its own name. I can leave. I tell you that clearly, so you know I had a choice. The tunnel mouth is thinner but present. My gear is mostly gone. Without it, I have no proof, only a bad story that sounds like an aesthetic. I could turn, but proof is why I came. Pride is why I keep going. Also this, I want to know. Curiosity is a blade you draw against your own palm to see if you can take the cut. I follow myself deeper. The air warms by a degree that feels personal. The circles of salt above tighten to rings like pressed lips. My phone creeps up another few percent and stabilizes at 81. The drip is not random now. It matches the cadence of speech. It seems to be practicing my vowels. The rust-red handprints propagate, one ahead of each step, tiny mirrors in iron oxide. When I place my palm on one, it feels damp like skin on a winter window. There are stories about salt domes that heal. Miners blast. The salt flows back with time, patient as a parent picking up toys. I hold the red handprint next to my own and say to the camera that this is creep, that salt moves like a glacier under breath and will close a tunnel if you do not brace it. That geology is not a ghost, but a schedule. The tunnel hums my name on the last word, as if arguing on principle. I lose the mouth behind me. There is only wall, the color of old teeth. Where the entrance was, the mineral is rubbed smooth. Not a collapse. A lick, as if something pressed a tongue there. My backpack thumps ahead from nowhere and skids to my feet, skinned and wet. I open it with hands that forget their job. The spare batteries inside are full. The chocolate bar has melted and hardened to a new shape like it learned what I like. The tripod strap is cut clean, not frayed. Some choices, once made, look like someone made them for you. I record a voice memo in case the camera fails. This is Nora, I say, and the tunnel says this is Nora back, exactly over me, a duet at the same time, a double that does not lag. I feel a second pulse under my own. It is slow, patient, big. The red herring I carried in dissolves. This is not mere salt creep. That would not text me. It would not helpfully charge my battery, so I could walk longer. It would not hum on the edges of the words I use to convince myself. The handprints stretch when I look too long and then settle, smug. The circles on the ceiling drip all at once and spot my lens with pearls that are warm. I come to the point, the only point this place wanted for me. My shadow stands in the cone of my light and then steps out of it without me. It is as close to my height, my slope of shoulder, my left ankle hitch from an old sprain as anything that is not a mirror can be. It turns, and I feel turned without having moved. It opens its mouth, and no sound happens, yet the hum grows. You can call what comes next a choice. I do. I had to choose to be the one who leaves or the one who stays when a place like this wants both to continue. The tunnel is not a structure. It is a throat. Throats are for keeping and sending. It keeps what answers. It sends what can move. The graffiti was not warning so much as grammar. It does not let go does not mean no one leaves. It means it holds one while letting one go, and the leaving one does not know which she is until the lights change. The red handprint belongs to earlier copies, the ones that reached and try to make sense of a scene between. I press record harder, as if there's a deeper on to reach. The camera sings in my hand. The phone battery, my ticking metronome, clicks to 101 impossible jump. Somewhere beyond this curve, the night outside exists. Somewhere beyond this, Leah is reading text from me I did not send. The shadow steps backward, and backward becomes forward. I follow. My feet fall into prints that land just before I lift my shoes. When I feel the change, it is small. The hum pulls to the left like a tide. For a breath, I am two people avoiding one another in a narrow hall. My stomach drops as if a car crested a hill too fast. Then I am alone and not alone. The tunnel inhales. The lens fogs on the inside. I say my name and hear it twice. One is on time. One is on its own. If you're waiting for violence, it does not come. Salt does not need teeth. It has patience. It has the courtesy of letting you think it is letting you choose. When the air shifts pressure and the ceiling flakes come down like snow that wants to stick, I understand what the moth understood in the lantern. A body is a pattern a place can practice. I step and the floor rises a fraction of an inch to meet me, like a tongue offering help. My light washes over pale walls and find a new patch of writing at shoulder height. It is not let go as scored this time, not painted, and the cuts are fresh. I do not remember carving them. I do not remember bleeding on my thumb and smearing rust that made a handprint almost, but not exactly mine. A head day, thin and blue like a hospital window. The graffitied sentence repeats, then fades as if it was never there. The hum diminishes and slips behind me the way water sound stands up when you walk away from a creek. I do not run because running says yes too loud. I walk, and each step feels like a receipt printed somewhere warm. I wake outside. It is not sleep exactly. It is the sudden relief of car air, an old bottle of water, gravel under calf, a lichen bloom on a rock I did not notice before. The camera is in my lap and recording. The file length says I have been talking for 30 minutes. The audio sounds like weather. When I scrub the timeline, my face appears in low light. I am in the tunnel, crying hard, say my name over and over as if it is a rope thrown to a person in a river. I do not remember that part. I remember the moth, the text for myself, the feeling of stepping into my footsteps. I do not remember promising anything to the dark. I play the footage at half speed and see something I will keep to myself until now. In the spill of my headlamp, I see a second me 3 inches off to my right, mouth open on the same word, lips landing a half beat late. The version of me in the frame looks past me at something friendly. The version of me holding the camera looks at you. I go home with footage and an ache in the meat under my shoulder blades like a harness was there too tight. Leah listens and nods and says my name in a way that makes me believe her. She reaches for my hand, and I let her take it because it makes me feel anchored. She laughs and asks me to do the tongue click I do when I'm thinking, a habit she teases. I do it, and when I stop, the tunnel does it once more faintly through the heater vent in the kitchen. Days later, I film an intro for the video. I say Salt Lick Tunnel does not let go, with a smile that isn't a lie exactly. My lips are half a second late on the last word. I watch it back and see it. It is small. Most of you would not. But if you ever speak on camera for long, you know the thump of your own vowels. Mine have a new echo that did not exist before. Sometimes when the apartment is quiet, a little grit falls from nowhere and glitters on the counter. It tastes like pennies if I put it on my tongue, which I do once and only once. The comments on the video are kind. People argue about batteries and salt creep and how I fake the text. A person with a username that reads like a quarry worker says the circles on the ceiling are breath marks and I should never go back. Another account replies with a red hand emoji and nothing else. I will not return to Salt Lick Tunnel. That is not fear speaking. That is grammar. It is not let go. It has me on a small leash of timing I can ignore until I say my name at night and hear it answered from just to the left of my mouth. If you have ever filmed yourself and caught the lag, you know what I am saying. If you have not, do not test it. Pick different ruins. Pick an open field. Pick a lake that pretends it will tell you its depth. Do not pick a place that breathes. Now it is your turn, listener. You tell me what you think happened to the other me. Do you think she stayed where the walls are damp and humming? Or do you think she left ahead to practice my words while I catch up? I will pin a theory that feels most right. We can move on if you want. Story 4. Widow Laurel's calling tree, the laurel bark peels and long ribbons that curl into mouth shapes. And when the wind forgets to blow, the mouths keep whispering anyway. If you have ever stood in front of a tree that seems to speak without moving, you know the kind of quiet that eats the edges of your name, right? I park by the old cemetery gate because my husband grew up here and his people still like to keep watch. The town smells like wet clay and engine oil. I came back because of a promise I made with both hands on a paper cup in hospice room. Scatter me at the calling tree, he said, like it was a place you would meet a friend, and I said yes because I did not know the shape of the yes yet. The urn rides, seat belted beside me, ridiculous and heavy. I tell myself I am strong enough to do this alone. His sister offered to come. The deacon offered prayer. I want no witnesses. It is almost midnight, and my lantern battery reads 2 bars. The night air is warm and wrong and full of resin. If you have ever carried a person reduced to powder, you know how the weight rearranges your spine. Yes? The first whisper comes before I say a word. A sound like wet paper torn slowly, then my name sliding out grain by grain. Ruth. Ruth, say it again. The tree stands in a low clearing where laurel pack tight, like shoulders turned inward. No wind. No trick. Bark mouths part and close without moving at all. It is like hearing someone breathe on the other side of a closed door, only the door is wood with a pulse. I notice things because noticing is how you stay upright. The leaves have curled inward, not toward light, but toward themselves, as if they are listening on purpose. There are rope remnants in the higher branches, frayed in places and smooth in others, and not shadows that look like hands. There's an ash ring at the roots, not like a campfire, but like dust that tried to fall and failed. Birds circle and circle overhead, wings whispering, and not one bird is foolish enough to land, which feels like a lesson. I say his name. I only say it once. The tree says it back in his cadence, right down to the little laugh he snuck at the end when he was proud of a guess. I smile, then fold in half, because grief can pick you up by the back of your coat and shake you. You can tell me I am hearing what I want. You can tell me my brain is a trick mirror. You would not be wrong often. Tonight, the mirror moves first. A rope end swings down from the branch, looped like a promise. My lantern dims and then finds itself again. At my knees, the ash ring stirs and lifts, a slow spiral that moves with intention. I take the urn from the seat I made for it in the leaves, and the ashes inside bumps softly against the lid like a hand asking not to be alone. The car alarm shrieks behind me for no reason, then gulps once and dies. Every path for retreat goes still at once, which is how nights like this clear their throats. I pull out my phone for courage and find the voice recorder already open on a blank file, red dot pulsing. When I stand close enough for the hem of my dress to catch resin drips, the screen fills with the shape of sound before I speak at all. I think a sentence I have never said out loud and watch the wave form it like a signature. The tree hums that sentence back, clever as a magpie. I do not know whether to feel comfort or insult. I step closer anyway because the only way through is through. The bark almost looks soft where the ribbons peel. You are not him, I say, though I want it to be him so badly the wanting makes sweat run down my back. The answer comes in his voice, older by a day, heavier, sweet with a cough. Then from deeper, something thin and real in the same timbre whispers my secret nickname. The one he used once after midnight when only the fridge knew. It is a name I have never repeated. That is the cut that bleeds. The point where I cannot turn around arrives quietly. I kneel. The roots are slick and cold through denim. I press my ear to the bark the way you press to a door when you know the way out is what is on the other side. The bark parts under my cheek like lips opening in a sleepwalker. The smell of laurel resin hits strong. A hospital cabinet and a fresh wound, an old Christmas all at once. I am here, I say, and it is a promise I cannot unmake. The tree is not a person. You know that, and I know that. It is a vessel and a memory and a hunger that wears the sound of people like a coat. It keeps fragments of the dead in its resin, the way amber holds gnats and rain. The curled leaves brush my hair like fingers when I tilt my head to listen. Rope hisses against bark overhead, as if pulled by hands I cannot see. My lantern battery drops one bar in an instant and then flutters like a bird. At first there is only the loud voice, the one that sounds like him, making all the right shapes, easing the ache open. Come closer, it says. Bring me home. Answer me. The ash ring thickens and lifts against gravity, motes moving up past my mouth like dust deciding it would rather be breath. The rope reaches my shoulder and settles there like a collar, which is when I understand that offerings were not tied to this tree. People were. Under that, faint is the true voice. If you have ever listened for a heartbeat under noise, you know how you have to quiet everything that is you to hear it. The quiet voice is hoarse and impatient. Do not answer, Ruth. Not once, not twice, not again. The louder voice says the nickname and says it wrong. The quieter voice uses it right and catches on the syllable where he always used to smile. The tree waits to see which teacher I will choose. I want to believe. I want to be told that I can stand here and finish our unfinished sentence. I want the kind of miracle you do not need to explain to anyone because it happened inside your ear, and what is more intimate than that? I'm not stupid. I know grief makes radios out of dumb materials. I also know that rope can be a verb. I put my fingers under the loop at my shoulder and feel a pull that is not wind. I make a choice. Choices divide a life. I take the urn lid off and hold it up like a small shield. The swirl of ash touches it and clings like cold breath on a window. The bark mouse flex, hopeful. I take the metal edge and drag it across the rope. It is not a strong knife. It is not a knife at all. The edge rattles. Fibers part a little. The tree's loud voice says my name again, like a scolded dog trying to get back on the couch. The true voice says no so softly I almost miss it. I keep sawing. When the rope gives, it pops with a sigh that moves through the leaves. The loop falls, and the leaves that had curled toward my hair uncurl a fraction, then hover like hands that disagree with one another. The ash that had been rising trembles and shifts like a school of fish startled by a boat. Some of it falls back to earth. Some of it does not. I understand, then, that what we think of as scattering here is not escape. It is inventory. The louder voice tries the nickname once more wrong. The quieter one lags and lands it right, and then says my name like a pleading thing. I take both hands off the tree and back a step into the ash ring, which is warmer than dirt deserves to be. I do not answer. That is my weapon. Absence is a kind of cut. The phone in my pocket records both voices as one line that breaks the graph into teeth. My lantern gutter flashes and steadies. Around me, the laurel leaves close again for a breath, then open like a crowded room, remembering its manners. In the resin seam where my ear had been, a bead forms, golden and thick, and inside the bead there's a scatter of gray flecks that glow only when the light moves. You cannot tell me what that is without putting your hand to your own throat first and choosing a word you do not want to keep. I gather what I can gather back into the urn. Not all of them comes. I knew that before I started. You do not carry someone you love to a place that eats names and expect a receipt. I whisper a small apology toward the resin bead without looking straight at it. The birds above cry once, thin and relieved, like a kettle pulled off a boil. The path through the Laurel looks like it is there again, which could be mercy or bait. Back at the car, my hands shake so hard the keys miss the lock twice. The alarm beeps once in a tired voice and then thinks better of it. I drive to town with the radio off, the way you do when the noise in your head is enough company. At a stop sign near the mill, I look into the rear view and see my lips move a half beat late, like a dubbed film. I close my mouth and let silence tighten. In the morning, my sister-in-law asks if I did it right and whether I want her to bring a casserole and a prayer. I say yes to both, because sometimes you let people bring you what they think helps. I did not tell her about the rope burn on my shoulder. I did not tell her that my phone recorded me answering back in two voices at once for 30 seconds I do not remember. I did not tell her I am afraid to play it again, in case the quiet voice is quieter or gone. Nights later, Laurel leaves appear on my porch, though there is no Laurel within shouting distance. The leaves are curled inward, small green hands protecting a secret. When I lean close, they whisper my name the way a person practices a word in a new language. Ruth. Ruth. They pause as if waiting for me to answer through the wood. I go inside and turn on the sink to make a louder water sound and tell myself old houses talk. If you have ever lost somebody, you know that death moves furniture in your mind. Some rooms you never open. Some doors you lean against with all your weight. I'm not going back to the clearing. I say that now while I still believe myself. I put the urn up high and keep the lid on. The resin bead and the bark I will not think about. The recording I saved under another name by accident and cannot find twice. If you think the tree only mimicked, tell me why it knew the nickname better than I did. If you think it was all grief, explain the rope dust on my fingers and the way my sentences finish late when the room is very still. I will read your theories. I will respect your comfort. But if you come to my porch with Laurel in your hands, I will not open the door when you call. Now we come to the last one for tonight, if you're still with me. Story 5. The church that moves each night, the bell rope hangs in open air and swings even though the trees do not move. The white clapboard church sits where my county map shows only timber, and every time the bell tolls my wristwatch stutters and drops a minute, as if the sound bites time instead of counting it. The pew light through the windows floats chalk dust that has no right to be in night air, and the whole place smells like wet hymnals pulled from a river, which is not how churches should smell, is it? I am June Pritchard, contract mapping tech, out here to verify a landslide reroute the state needs in the system before morning. The budget hates extra hours. My supervisor loves catching them. I told my fiancé, who works night EMT, that I would not chisel folklore into my route. He said if I saw the night church, I should keep driving. I promised. Then I set my hazard lights and walked toward it anyway, because the dataset and the ground disagreed. The fog is thick as milk in headlights, but the church stands sharp inside it, a tooth rooted in the wrong jaw. A bulletin tacked to the door lists a memorial service dated tomorrow. Below the names, in faint pencil, someone added June P. I tell myself the J could be anyone. I tell myself this church is a forgotten relocation from some flood year. The bell tolls once. My watch jumps from 12:41 to 12:34 in a single blink, and the second hand steadies like nothing happened at all, which is a neat trick if you like that sort of trick. I stand still to test my GPS. The blue dust slides toward the church, even though my boots do not scrape. The steps creak in a friendly way under my weight, and then keep creaking after I stop, polite and persistent, the way you make noise to tell a house you're a company, not a thief. In a narthex, chalk dust outlines footprints that face the doors backward. They're a woman's size and the same brand of work boot I wear. The hymn board reads 4:23:50 like a secret your grandmother mutters. The stained glass above the aisle shows a road crew at night, faces blank, vest shining. One figure near the back has a reflective stripe shaped exactly like the one across my chest, which is a coincidence until is not. I lift my hand to my shoulder because the glass version of me is lifting hers. I stop first. The saint in the next panel raises a hand like mine anyway, which is not how stained glass behaves when there is no one behind it. The bell gives a soft half strike that suggests is practicing. My watch drops to 12:28 and the seconds breathe. I write 4:23:50 in survey chalk on my glove and tell myself I will decode it later. On the door is a smear that looks like a thumbprint the color of old slate, as if someone pushed while the paint was still wet and never wiped the history away. Inside, the air is dry, dust sheets the pews in settled lines, and yet I can smell rain in the boards the way you smell a coat that was hung up damp. People sat facing the back wall, not the altar. All their ghost shoulders slant that way. The aisle pitches a hair toward the altar like a funnel, like a throat. I mark the threshold with a T in chalk so I can prove later what I remember now, and when I open the door to check, the hillside outside is not the one I walked up. It is birch and shale and a creek that belongs in another county, which is a problem if your job is to match ground to map. The organ plays from nowhere, not a full hymn, a held chord of Blessed Assurance, which is my fiancé's favorite song because his mother sang it in the kitchen while burning pancakes. No player sits at the bench. The keys do not move. The pipe mouths are dark. The sound comes anyway, soft as a memory through a wall. I put my hand on the bench and feel it humming like a cat. The bell keeps time with the chord and then steals 2 more minutes from my watch while I look straight at it. I pull back to the aisle. The hymn board numbers change with a sound like chalk on slate turned by a careful hand. 4:23:50 becomes 36:18:07, which are coordinates if you have eaten maps for dinner long enough. Those numbers point to the road in front of my childhood home. The stained glass shifts one panel over. Where the blank-faced crew stood, a figure now reflects a thin triangle of hazard orange, wrong for any ordinary vest and right for mine. The figure's head tilts, and so does mine, and I stop, and the figure keeps tilting, which means something else is doing the copying. My truck's dash camera pings an alert. I pull up the feed on my phone. The church sits behind my truck in the frame, as if it had always been there. I am looking at the camera from inside the church while the camera looks at the church that is outside, which is the sort of loop you avoid if you value equilibrium. I back out to the narthex. The bulletin has changed. A fresh sheet wears the same date, still tomorrow. Memorial service for June Pritchard for 20 a.m. I press the paper. The pencil sinks into fibers as if it were written a second ago and has opinions. The bell rope curls once around my wrist when I pull away. It is not a strong grip. It has the confidence of something that could be, given half your cooperation. On the communion table, there are cups of water instead of wine, all covered in film and dust, except one. That one bead sweat and tilts toward me like a hand extended. I did not come here to drink symbolic water. I did not come here to be in a service I did not agree to attend. Still, my mouth is dry. I leave the cup on the tray and step back because sometimes refusal is smarter than dignity. I radio my fiancé on county band. Static eats his name. My truck auto-locks behind me after 5 minutes by design, which is good for theft prevention and bad for theory testing. I push open one side door to find a deer path and the lights of a farmhouse I do not know. I try the other, and it opens to a red clay road I drove last year on a flood survey 3 counties south. I try the third, and it frames the guardrail at the overlook where we watched fireworks 2 summers ago. None of these doors exit to the gravel I walked up, which is a practical problem with an unpractical flavor. I ring the bell once to flag him anyway. The rope has weight and memory. The tone is rich and wrong, and it reaches from the belfry into my ribs. My watch drops 7 minutes in one gulp and lands on 12:09 with the seconds loud as footsteps. I feel thinner around the edges, and I do not like that idea at all. The chalk dust footprints appear ahead of me, where there was only plain floor moment before. They face me, not away. They're my boot size. When I step forward, the prints do not move. When I step backward into them, heel for toe, I feel the aisle tilt in my favor as if the building cheered for a clever student. I do not move yet. I walk to the board and scratch the numbers on a leaflet instead. The organ chord sings a half measure and quits like a breath held too long. The bell shivers without sound. The hymn numbers flip to 0:02. I tell myself a story to stay sane. People moved this church on skids years ago to avoid a flood. Old-timers did that with churches and barns. Maybe some kids with tractors are having a midnight joke with a chalkboard and a bell. There's a fresh scrape on a sill. The floor has a smooth path grooved where benches might slide. But the dew outside is unbroken. The foundation is not a foundation, but exposed roots curled like knuckles. And the bell keeps removing time in clean bites. Not random, not human. The prank theory crumbles like stale cake on her coffee. I look up the glass again and wish I had not. The panel with my reflective stripe shows my face now as a smear of gold with two eyes unstained. Raw, clear, oval glass staring at me from inside a picture of me that loves me like a pattern loves a match. The saint next to her holds a little slate with numbers that rearrange while I watch. They flip down and settle on 0, one in a neat row, and my watch obliges and wavers at 12:01, though it was at 12:09 when I stared at the scratch on my glove. I step into the backward prints before the rope can think itself brave. Heel to toe, toe to heel, breathing in counts because panic and math cancel. The aisle stretches behind me as if reluctant to let me measure it. The door I mark with a chalk T opens to a bay with a red ambulance sleeping under lights. My fiancé leans against the bumper, checking his phone, bored, as if it is any other night, which feels like a scene placed there on purpose for a woman who wants very much to be missed. The bell gives a half strike, and my watch clicks to 12 o'clock with a soft tremor. I am 2 minutes from nothing, by the church's counting. The chalk under my heels shifts and becomes clearer, as if appreciating the attention. I am stuck between ringing the bell to make him look up and gripping the chalk hard enough to leave a mark where I want a door. I do not want to be caught praying to the wrong thing in a building that writes my future down in pencil. The truth waits where most truths wait, near the simplest line I was ignoring. This church is not a building that got dragged and never stopped. It is a wayfinding predator, a place that learned to move by aligning names and coordinates and schedules, so that it is always where grief is freshest. The bell does not call the community. It subtracts the time required to make the place around it become the churchyard. It is not moving to me. It is moving the world's routes around me until I belong where it says. I take the bulletin down and tear my name off it. The pencil line fights the rip like thread. I put the scrap in my vest pocket where my pulse thumps against it like a second bell. I chalk a new row of backward prints in an angle that is not offered, a third path out that wants to exist and does not yet. Chalk dust lifts in a breath and falls where my heels will be. The hymn board numbers flip to 4 to 20, not coordinates now, but a time. The stained glass freezes my hand on the bulletin with perfect, awful detail. My watch says midnight with the second hand twitching like a trapped moth. All the doors below open at once. Wind smells like my childhood road in August. The bell sends one tone that is not a toll, but a permission. I do not think. I step backward into the prints I drew, and the floor ticks, and the chalk squeaks, and the aisle coughs up a doorway that opens to a gravel shoulder by my mother's mailbox in the town I left at 19. My truck's dash camera recording shows my hazard lights blinking on an empty shoulder I do not recognize. The church is behind the camera again and in front of me at the same time, like a coin with both faces up if you're tired enough. I walk out. The chalk under my boots trails in a line like breadcrumbs. The church keeps ringing that single-held note in my bones. I do not look back because stories have rules. The bell refuses to mark my looking anyway. My watch face gives up and shows a blank square light, and then returns to local time, as if waking. My phone vibrates with a text from my fiancé. Nothing came through when you pinged. You all right? I type yes, and then stop because the truth is not a yes or a no. It is an address. At home, I pour chalk grit from my gloves onto the counter, and it shines like ash in a thin beam of fridge light. My phone case is clear. Each time I open maps, the reflection in the plastic shows me square and bright. But in the reflection, I look like a person rendered in stained glass, stiff at the joints, eyes clear ovals that will take color later. I close the app, and the reflection is my face, splotchy from fog and relief. I open the app again, and the glass version returns, patient as a pattern. At 4:20, every morning the torn bulletin scrap in my vest pocket changes itself. Not enough to see. Enough that the pencil smudge is fresh again, fragrant like cedar boxes in church basements. I took it out and left it on the counter, And at 4:20, it slid a whisper to the left and wrote itself a date 2 days from now. Each night, my GPS drops a new pin labeled temporary church near someone I love. First my mother's road, then my sister's apartment off the interstate. Then the EMT bay where my fiancé naps between calls. I stop looking before it puts a pin on my front step. The app writes things you do not want printed. I drive past the gravel turnout where I found it the next week. There is nothing nestled in the fog, only trees and a square of dead grass with a hymn-board shadow. I slow without stopping because slowing is a small prayer that looks like traffic. The radio runs a public service spot about flood safety, and a woman says the words high ground with a smile that belongs to Sunday school. The bell tone sounds inside my truck cab, even though no bell is near. One note, not a threat, not a comfort, a reminder to keep my minutes where the building cannot bargain. If you ever find a church where your map expects timber, leave it for someone who still keeps their name off lists. If the bell takes time instead of telling it, do not measure. If you see your own reflective stripe in glass, stop raising your hand. Choose backward if backward is the only honest direction. And if a bulletin bears your name in pencil, take the paper and keep it where your pulse can teach it to forget. And that brings us to the end of tonight's journey. 5 Appalachian nightmares, each stranger than the last, each reminding us that the mountains do not always sleep when we want them to. From a whistle that learns your breath to a church that recenters the world around your name. These stories linger because they borrow from the things we trust most: time, memory, voice, and place, and show us how fragile they really are. If you made it this far, you're braver than most. I want to know which story left the deepest chill in you. Was it the whistle looping back through vents, or the lantern that replaced a man step by step, or maybe the church that keeps writing names in pencil? Tell me in the comments. I always read them, even when I probably shouldn't. If you enjoyed tonight's descent, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who swears they don't scare easy, and subscribe for more nights like this. Every week we gather here in the dark corners and pull one more thread. And if you want to support the channel, you can join the Whispering Abyss community, where we go deeper, and sometimes too deep. Until next time, keep your lights steady, keep your minutes where you can see them, and never answer a voice that knows your secrets before you speak them. Good night.